Hey everybody, very special announcement. We have another giveaway coming. Everyone's been waiting for it here.
Yes.
We've just reached the 1K sub mark pretty recently here, and we're doing a bit of a giveaway. By a bit, I mean we're giving away more than we usually do. We got
it's a special milestone. You gotta do it.
Yeah, it is a special 1K. We weren't expecting any of this. We were just two random guys playing some games, talking about random shit that we didn't know if anyone would actually want to listen to, and here we are.
Yep.
We are going to be rolling off some prizes. So let's show everyone what they're potentially winning here. So on my side, we have two beautiful sets. Well, you're going to be rolling for one of these sets. So the Herald of Rebirth extended art, the rainbow foils here.
One
so
of each
roll would be
pitch.
One of each color. Yep, one of each color. So 3 cards total. There will be a cold foil Icelander and a cold foil Genus. I don't know if the screen captures that very well. So one roll will be for both of those. So both of those cold foils, and then we're gonna have a cold foil Crazy Brew alt art. Look at that, beautiful,
That's a big
beautiful
one.
And crazy. Rob, what do you got for the fans here?
Yeah, so we've got 3 of the alternate art Boneyard Marauders here from, I believe, Team Covenant. So one winner will get all 3 of these. I then have a Rainbow Foil Katsu from my collection here to be given off. Pretty nice card there. Additionally, 1 Rainbow Foil Azalea for all you Ranger fans. And last but not least, or hopefully not, we've got one of our Spark of Genius playmats that we will be giving away. We've gotten some, requests for people who wanted to buy these, and we figured let's just put it in a giveaway for anyone to win. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, all you got to do to win, very, very simple. You have to like, comment, and subscribe on any of the videos with this intro onto it. For the comment, all we need to hear from you is, we've been doing this a little while, almost, quite a long time, almost a year, not actually even close to a year.
Eight months?
For a while, about 8 months now. So what kind of video do you want to see us making in the future? This could be more of the same, more of our CC videos, Classic Constructed Blitz, our POV drafts, discussion videos, deck text, whatever. What do you want to see us make more of? Whether we've made any of it or not, let us know down in the comments for any of the videos. We will be posting this for probably the month of August. And when the month of August is up, we will be doing the rolls in September. And with that, appreciate everyone for watching. Your continued support from the bottom of both of our hearts. We really do appreciate it. With that, have a great day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another collaboration Spark of Genius OK&Y Podcast production. We've had a series with our good friends at OK&Y and our collaboration series in Uprising. It was quite well received as far as the deck construction and the play, the gameplay videos, kind of sussing out some of the new set heroes. And so, of course, blossoming into a beautiful collaboration partnership here. Of course, we're doing a bit more of a discussion type videos. You can tell probably from the title. We are joined by OY. K is still missing in the background, but we're joined by Oliver and Yichin here from OK&Y, and also I'm joined by Rob, my co-creator, co-commentator, co-caster, co-compatriot on the left. I guess my right is whatever. They're joined in these 2 squares over here, like Hollywood squares. And so we're going to talk about some. There was a bit of an event, you might have heard of it, the Pro Tour. It's a small casual event with some players from across the world going to compete in a card game that nobody knows about. And so it happened in Lille this time. So Lille's in France, for anyone who's unaware. And it was a banger. There were definitely some really intense games. There was some, I guess there were some surprises. I think a lot of it kind of made sense when you really kind of look under the microscope a little bit. But there were some pretty interesting results that we're going to talk about. We'll be recapping the PT, the calling, and the events surrounding it. So kind of all the interesting tidbits in between that you might have not been aware of. And we're going to go kind of chronologically here. We're going to start with the Banquet. And Yichin actually has some, I'll say it's not really insider information, but he has the information that most people probably don't have at this point, right? So we're gonna lean right into that. So take it away, Yichin.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, James White has this, I guess it's going to be a tradition of doing a quick Q&A section at the beginning of every Pro Tour or bigger event, where he just takes questions from the community. The last one was recorded and put on YouTube. As far as I'm aware, this one was not. So we're relying on a lot of information from our quote unquote contacts on the ground to bring you this. So for the most part, a lot of this was mostly a bit of lore related stuff. I won't go into that much of detail. I do want to mention a couple of things that he mentioned about the metagame and about the future of Flesh and Blood's competitive scene, which I think will be most relevant to most of you guys. The first thing he mentioned, which is actually quite surprising, was that if they could, they would go back and design Tales of Aria very differently, knowing what they know now. He straight up said that Briar's design was a mistake, and that she would be the number one target for a different design if they were to do a rebalancing of Tales of Aria. Specifically, he mentioned that the reason why Briar does not only key off of elemental attacks and elemental cards is because when she was designed, Runeblade cards were not played very often, and they got requests for Runeblade to be playable from me. So that's why they made her more agnostic, which actually leads to a lot of the problems where we see Briar, as you'll see in the future, dominating most of the meta right now. So that's an interesting thing for him to admit. I think that's pretty nice that they acknowledged it. The other thing they wanted to mention is that overall, they're trying to reduce the amount of Go Again that's readily available to heroes. So slowing the game down, they say, is a major focus of the next year of design. So you can expect a lot more disruptive elements, and you can expect a lot less free Go Again abilities in the future. Whether or not that holds, we'll see. But that's what he says. So we'll take him at his word. The other thing that he mentioned for the competitive scene was that the trend of open events will continue. Don't expect any sort of like high-level players leagues in the future. So for the most part, there shouldn't be, aside from players who are highly skilled making top 8s, there shouldn't be much of an old boys crowd forming throughout the as the game progresses. Like with Magic, we had a bit of an issue where we had top players that were favored by Wizards of the Coast and were basically given a player's salary for them, and that allowed them to continue to play Magic and continue to dominate the pro scene, whereas other challengers would not get the same financial support, so they couldn't do that. James White has said that aside from tournament winnings, they don't want to do that sort of thing. So that's one thing I thought that was interesting. And I'm sure most of you have seen that the Emperor was spoiled. On I think it was Friday, I believe.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to talk about that, or I think
the Emperor?
We can talk about what we know. We can talk about that he's a dual class warrior wizard, aka Runeblade. That's people that are memeing.
He is the first one. He is the first dual class hero. I did see the release. I think I watched him talk about he's definitely he confirmed he's only a young hero. Right,
yeah.
He has 15 health.
Yeah, he's
same as Kano. Yeah, same as Kano. Very similar. He's definitely interesting. I mean, it's also one of the first heroes that essentially tie him to a specific card with his ability, right? Like the Command and Conquer, which makes a whole lot of thematic sense, right?
I'll stop you right there because we just got Phi, and that's Phoenix Flames.
True.
That's true.
I was more talking about a generic, one a card that has been released in prior sets. So it's tying a new released hero with a card that's been available for prior sets rather than it came out side by side.
Yeah.
So it's the first time we've seen that kind of connection to
back to the kind of lore
in that.
Can we expect a reprint then of CNC? Pretty realistically, I think.
Yeah, it would be great. I'm 50-50 on whether or not they would actually do it. I want to say they should do it, but I don't want to confirm that.
This is a supplemental set, so it is not draftable. If it was guaranteed, it'd have to be in that set. But since it's not draftable, I guess anything goes. It'd be a good courtesy to include the card again, because it's still expensive. It's still $60 Canadian. I guess 50,
but so
50
far,
or so US.
Yeah, but so far they have historically they've reprinted legendaries, right? They got the tunic and the skull cap as the reprints for supplementary sets, right? So I don't know if they would keep going on that train for Dynasty.
There are no targets though. I think there's no good targets to reprint in the legendary department.
Target. Yeah, I think also with the release of History Pack 1, right? Because you can get CNC out of that too now.
Yeah.
I would be a little bit surprised to see a CNC reprint. I mean, obviously, like now there's a card that literally says "Go fetch it," which makes it unplayable if you don't own them.
Yeah.
So and also like the other part of his text, essentially you can only use red cards in your deck, right?
Yeah.
Which is definitely interesting. I mean, there's a lot of powerful red cards, obviously, but
there are going to be ways probably to cheat out resources, maybe in the form of a weapon or in the form of new cards that come out for royal only heroes, right? Because James White did put emphasis on the royal part of it.
Yeah, the royal is the first thing we've seen with royal. He's not draconic, is he?
He is okay.
Draconic. So I guess he can use stuff like Flamescale Furnace, right? To try to get, pitch something. It's like the Dromai effect, right? The way you can get more resources out of your reds, but he won't be able to get Ash. But obviously he can only have reds, right? So he doesn't really have an alternative there. But there definitely might be some stuff surrounded that. I've heard some like rumors that he's gonna have like items from the palace to be read. Like they're gonna give him some royal items or something like that, and essentially that will help him. Kind of like there's been some art for like different art pieces that are I don't know. That's kind of, it'd be kind of cool.
I heard also another rumor from someone just today who had a friend who was at the Pro Tour mentioned that for those who play Hearthstone and World of Warcraft, that he would have an effect that's similar to Ragnaros, the Fire Lord. Now, whatever so the way the card works is it deals 8 damage to a random target or a random hero or minion on the opponent's side of the board. So it could be a source of random damage, which targets auras, maybe heroes.
In Blitz, lol. That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah. So
see Oliver's face scrunch up as he's like random.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if that's. I mean, I hope it's true, but I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. So we'll see if that's true or not.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the Emperor?
My opinions will be short as always. I really hate that they introduced multi-classing.
Oh yeah.
Because
Not much of a multi-classer?
I actually wanted multi-classing to be what talents were, but then they introduced talents, and I was like, okay,
it's a bit confusing now,
Yeah. And then they subverted expectations, and then they introduced multi-classing and multi-talenting in the same hero, and this ruins my day.
Because now you can have like a whole matrix of things, right? Because you have heroes who have different classes, classes, and now talents that seem to weirdly overlap now. Yeah, it's a bit muddy.
Yeah, it's getting complicated.
A little complicated.
I want to say like it feels super inelegant to me for them to introduce multi-classing this way, especially with 2 other words in the type line, one of which we have nothing about.
Yeah.
I will say that people are speculating, nothing concrete, that we'll get a Draconic Warrior and a Draconic Wizard in the same set, in which case maybe Emperor's design makes a lot more sense. They did say, or James White did say during the Q&A, that they are focusing on expanding the current talent pool rather than introducing new talents for the next year. So do expect more Draconic, Elemental, Light, and Shadow cards.
Right.
Which is pretty good. I do hope that once they do expand it, we will get a lot more overlap between all the classes, so that we can see the design overlap a lot better. I think it'll be interesting to see, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. So that was kind of the Q&A discussion, right? So moving right into the PT, the Pro Tour. This is Pro Tour number 2, right? So Pablo Pintor, I believe, was the winner on chain in Pro Tour 1. The fancy gold. It was like a gold chain, said Pro Tour on it or something.
Yep, in gold writing on the body. Yeah. The effect would have been Pro Tour.
Yeah. So this is the first mixed Pro Tour, but what I mean by that is that there's CC and drafts, mixed format tournament. They've had mixed format before. It's not a new kind of newfangled format. However, it's the first.
We're mixed format, right? Yeah.
Exactly. The Nationals with Tales of Aria were mixed format, and this is just the first one at this level that's been mixed format, right? This is a tier 4. I want to say 4, right?
Yeah, I believe
tier 4 event being mixed, and the way they did it is they had draft first, so they had one pot of draft, 3 rounds of draft, and then 4 rounds of CC for day 1 and day 2. And another interesting thing that is different from New Jersey is all X4s went to day 2, whereas in Jersey it was X3s.
Okay.
I have some thoughts about
a little
this,
more lenient.
as I was in Jersey. Now, they're not super strong, but it is like a big difference, right? Because it does impact your decision whether you want to go to the calling or not. Because before you kind of had to if you X4'd out. But so that was a difference too. And then top 8 was all CC, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'd be a good point to start to just look really quickly at the hero breakdown for day 1 and kind of see where it was going here. So I have it up here. I'll just I know you guys have probably seen it already, but if just right off the bat, 80 Briars, and I think there were a total, of 300 and I believe 50 something
354.
players. 354, exactly. So 354. In the CC portion here, we have 80 Briars and 62 Viscerais. So immediately you're looking at what, 40% Runeblade?
Close,
give or take,
pretty much, yeah.
Ish, right? About 40% Runeblade. I don't think anyone was surprised that Runeblade would be this. I think maybe they were didn't know where Briar and Viscerai were in that slice, but I don't think anyone had any doubts that it would be at least a third would be Runeblade.
Yeah.
And then next, which surprised me a little bit, but not really that much, was 59 Prisms. I thought Prism would be third. I didn't know there'd be almost as many Prisms as Viscerai. I was a little surprised, not too surprised. And then kind of rounding out the next double-digit heroes are 36 Fis, 28 Ultims, 27 Bravos, 27 Dash. Now, the dash number is a bit high. That's probably because of the call-in. That's definitely because of the call-in.
Riding off the popularity of that deck list.
That deck boosted on the scene here. Obviously, we had quite a bit of content on our channel about that deck here, and then it does definitely have a lot of very strong matchups into aggro, and it definitely has that surprise factor nobody was really expecting. So. And then we have the other heroes rounding out, some Dory, some Lexi, Icelander, Dromai,
the one
so
Reinar,
on and so forth.
the one Reinar,
the one Bolton. I think. Oh God, what's his name? I forgot his name.
It was on stream at one point, I think.
Yeah, he triple lumen on some guy. That's all I remember.
That's right,
I'm just oh wow, seems ideal.
Yeah,
it's very ideal. And yeah, so that was interesting. So just off the forefront, is there anything that sticks out to you guys on the breakdown for the PT?
So people
running
running
the heroes.
So all the Prisms are likely people who want to see her LL out. So everyone's bringing her to the Pro Tour and trying to get a win off of her, right?
Yeah, I want to say so. I am slightly surprised at the number of Bravos and Ultims. I thought that they feel like they're a bit low. I feel like people are still too wary of the Prism matchup, which obviously is understandable.
Yeah.
The number of Briars, I actually think that if the calling Singapore didn't happen, we would see a lot less, because just because Dash 1 calling Singapore doesn't mean that people were Briar is bad, right? Because Briar was still a good chunk of the top 8.
Yeah, exactly half, I think.
I think calling Singapore actually had a decent amount of. I mean, that area in general has a lot of Runeblades, but I feel like that sort of their success there really inspired a lot of the Briars to pick her up again after they're deciding between Fi and Briar.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
no,
I mean,
that's for sure.
Number of Fis are pretty low, honestly. I expected more Fi. 36.
I think the Stubbies ban is just kind of people. A lot of the early Fi adopters that weren't really big ninja fans to begin with, or didn't really they just the fact that you just combo them turn 1, turn 2, and just kill them 50 damage, right? They were just it was best deck, so they played best deck.
Yeah, okay.
But at this point, it's very clear that it was not best deck, because it lost a ton of power, ton of racing. It turned into a little bit of a mid-range deck, right? So you run Shuko, Flame Scale. Your matchup with the Guardian gets a lot better. You can block out better. So it's just a different style of deck. I think I definitely agree with the Guardian. I definitely think it people are scared of Prism. Prism is just it's the boogie woman,
too
right?
Oppressive.
You're taking a 50-minute break this matchup this round.
Yeah. You go to lunch.
That's right. It's your lunch
break. Which is not bad. I could use a nice 50-minute.
Yeah.
But that gatekeeps Dory, gatekeeps Icelander. It's just a very oppressive hero, which is fine. There are weaknesses very clearly, but that kind of makes sense. So I guess maybe how do we feel about the format, the mixed format part of it? So being able to have to draft your first 3 rounds and then CC 4 rounds after that. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so actually, I want to talk about this, especially in relation to CC. One thing that you'll note, especially in formats that or events that are only CC, is that round one, you'll if you win versus if you lose, your pool of opponents is incredibly different based off of that. I used to joke to Oliver that if you want to have a good matchup with Prism, just go into the X1 bracket, and then you'll be playing all the people who lost to Prism in the first round. I want to say it's similar here, or it's not as similar here, where you're separated by skill rather than by hero, by choice of hero in the first 3 rounds. So your subsequent performance in rounds 4 through 10 are largely going to be based off of what your draft record indicates rather than what your CC record is. They posted a list of all the heroes that made 4-0 during day one. If you don't mind, I'll just read them off.
Yeah.
Sure. So, of the heroes that went 4-0 in CC for day one, we have 5 Briars, 5 Phi, 4 Oldhams, 3 Viserai, 3 Prisms, 2 Lexi, 1 Bravo, and 1 Dash. The Lexi and the Oldhams, that's a relatively high percentage of the Lexis and Oldhams that actually showed up. I wonder if that's an indication that however they performed in the draft, that affected how their matchups were, where maybe, they're against a more intended spread of heroes that their deck is built against, rather than a more heavily prism heavy meta, or other hero heavy meta that they might have gotten into if they were just to play CC rounds.
No, that totally makes sense. I think it's and to that end, it's then you have your combined record and you go into day 2, and then you're drafting again. Like your first pod is drafting, and then there were also a lot of players I saw that X3 day 1 ended up like 7-0 or 6-1 day 2, just because their spread was a lot different, because they ended up going X3, going into that X3 draft pod, maybe like crushing that pod or something like that, and kind of then your bracket for the players just lets you really get into that. Maybe you can't top 8, but you can top 16, or you can top 32 or something a little bit easier, right? Because you're just in that bracket. So I definitely do think that's like probably, I would say it's intended and not intended, depending on who you brought and how you did, right?
Yeah, I can't say for sure like how it affects it one way or the other, but I do feel like that effect is probably not negligible when it comes to your matchup.
Yeah,
no, I totally agree. So day 1 ended up. So we had a couple undefeated. I think we had one Lexi was 7-0, a Prism was 7-0.
I think it was a Phi as well,
and one Phi that was 7-0.
One Phi,
which is actually pretty surprising.
So the Phi surprises me a little bit. Obviously the Lexi also surprises me a little bit.
Yeah.
Prism
Lexi
not so is
much.
like one Prism, because you can get, like, it's possible you just get really favorable matchups, and then if you end up with like 2 if you end up with like 2 Guardians that 3-0'd, right, like an Oldham and a Bravo or something that Exo draft, and then you end up seeing them one round 2, and then you get maybe like Viserai or something like that, or maybe closer matchups that you end up squeezing through. It is possible if like good enough Prism players. So that doesn't really surprise me as much, especially given the amount of Prisms there were. But definitely the Lexi list. I think I saw a game of that list. I think it was Easton Douglas, I think his name was. Yeah, and that was like a fusion list. That was like a lightning ice list, I believe. It was very different than definitely like what me and Yuki brought to like PT1, which was definitely more disruption focused with the Starvo meta kind of thing. But this was definitely more, I don't know if it's right down the middle, but it was definitely a list. Something I haven't really seen too much from. Probably took a lot of people by surprise. The surprise factor is huge. So that was kind of how that worked. And then in the metagame for draft, pretty standard stuff. 147 Phis, 105 Dromais, 102 Icelanders.
Pretty expected.
I think everyone kind of expected that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It is like 422 is obviously the average that is usually well supported. Like everyone can get an okay deck on average. Obviously, it'd be better and worse depending on where you want the pod. But
yeah,
kind of makes sense. But any other thoughts about day 1?
I want to say for day 1, not really, honestly. Like there is definitely the 7-0 players played very well.
Yep.
But as we'll see in day 2, that doesn't necessarily mean that you got a really smooth day 2, because I feel like all the 7-0 players had a lot of trouble with day 2.
Yep.
Right.
No, for sure. I think that is also like you're playing a lot of games, and maybe you're fresh on day 1 and you don't maybe something happens, or you're not as fresh for day 2, or your brain needs to, there are things that happen for day 1 versus day 2. But Oliver, did you have any thoughts? I don't want to skip by you here on day 1.
It's mostly just like, why did they make the cut X4?
Yeah,
I forgot.
Right, we didn't talk
mention
about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that. So, like, Jersey was X3, and that makes a whole lot of sense because it's a winning record, right? So 4-3 is the lowest winning record you can get.
Yep.
And you should, you have the option to, like, you X3, you're probably not top 8ing. Like, it'd be very difficult for you to top 8, depending on when you lost. Well, depending on when you lost the games. I think if you 4-0 and then X3, you could squeeze it in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure it has happened. But
What are you looking at me for?
Yes.
No?
In the PT or the calling?
in the calling.
It was calling.
So it's
In the calling.
so it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. And in the and so essentially here they made the change. I don't know. I don't think they explained why or they had any commentary about it, but they made it X4. The player count should have been pretty similar because the invitees are the same. It's essentially the same kind of requirements to PT2 compared to PT1. So player base doesn't really change. So I'm actually kind of curious on why they changed it to X4. I don't know if I agree with it's tough because like saying that someone with a losing record is like quote unquote deserves to day 2 in an event of that size is probably contentious to say the least. It's like, well, maybe they could have had a bad day 7-0 and then end up top 64ing. It's totally possible.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, if they X4'd, like how well would they do in the calling period? Like maybe it really depends. Like did they 0-4 CC and 3-0 draft? Right, then you probably don't want to go to the calling, which is like all CC, and maybe you're not super confident about it. That might be part of the reason why they made it. So like draft players would have a chance to draft again and try to like have better fortune in another draft kind of thing with a little bit of CC. I could totally see that as being the reason, but I'm curious what you guys think about it.
Honestly, I think that it was a mistake. One of the big things as a stats person is that the day 2 metagame for CC, it wasn't as rich as I would like it to be because 76% of all players qualified for day 2. So when you post the day 2 like metagame breakdown, you're basically only weeding out the players that are just like that didn't do very well at all. And that doesn't really tell me too much from a metagame perspective. And I assume that many players who ended up at 3-4 dropped anyway to playing the calling because why would I bother trying to get 7-0 for $250 where I can try calling where I can have a clean slate, right?
Right.
So I want to say that it was probably a mistake. I want to say they probably did it because they wanted to have people live the 7-0 dream. And I know some people who did 3-4 day 1 did end up going 7-0 and squeaked into top 64. So the dream is possible to get a $250 check, but I don't think it's necessarily. I think if you're going to make a cut, you have to make a cut so that even if you do perfectly, you still would get cut anyway. Or even if you would do perfectly and win, you still get cut anyway because otherwise that's the point of the cut.
There needs to be a chance to at least make top 8, I think, and have a chance to win the whole thing actually. So if you're just going day 2 to possibly get 64th or up top 64 just for a payout, I don't know. You're right. I would rather go to the calling, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's a matter of like X3 requires you to have a winning record in one or the other. So you could be 2-2 in CC and 2-1 in draft, and your draft record brings you to day 2. Or you can be 1-2 in draft and 3-1 in CC. Again, at least you have a winning record in one of the formats, bringing you to day 2. That makes a whole lot more sense than I couldn't really compete on either level, or I had a bad day on both. Like it's harder to like prove that's.
Yeah, I think they might have done it in response to the Pablo Pintor dream, where he was like, "Oh, I went 0-2 and then I won the Pro Tour," right? So maybe they're like, maybe we should give people who have losing records early on more chances, especially because people have been complaining that losses early in an event affect you more. Yeah, and it doesn't feel good enough. It doesn't feel good to compete if you have a losing record early on. So maybe they want to say like, "Here's a bit of leeway. Where you're going." I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's fair. I think we could probably roll into day 2 here, where as you kind of said before, Ichin, it's like even though you could do well day one, doesn't necessarily guarantee you any success day two, right?
Yeah.
There were a good chunk of people who did very well and just got destroyed in the first draft, right? They won 2, they 0-3. Usually, sometimes like no fault of their own. They're either in the wrong seed or they read it wrongly or something, and it just happened, or they, whatever, right? But it definitely did end up happening. Any thoughts about day two before I kind of set out a couple things here?
Yeah, so I think I want to say that for a lot of players that 3-0'd their pod and 4-0'd CC or did very well in CC, I want to say that those players, and no offense to them, were probably less skilled in the draft portion as the players who ended up naturally in the day two draft, like a high level draft pod with a very typical meta deck. I know many players that are like highly skilled and highly consistent players ended up just playing like bring Briar or bring Vizrai or bring Prism, and those players who do well despite having a target painted on their back, those are probably more indicative of a innate skill level that can translate to draft than players who attack the meta. Not to disparage anybody who does, because I think like that's a very legitimate strategy. But probably what ends up happening is that they get paired up or in a pod with all these high level players. And suddenly, the natural advantage that they have with reading the meta doesn't work when you have everybody on the same playing field.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of the players who ended up 7-0ing on rogue decks might have had that situation where they're paired up in the pod with, I don't know, like Dante, with Delfico, with Matt Rogers, with a bunch of other high-level players. And they end up either, just having a lot more competition where people are reading and like trying to send signals and cut people off, and end up losing because they weren't they didn't have as many like draft skills. Again, no offense to those players. That's just my thoughts.
Yep.
I think I echo that. I think the day two meta, again, a lot of rune blades, a lot of as you alluded to, it's kind of tough because it's like 3/4 of the players are qualifying for day. Like it's a bit hard to discern what CC heroes were doing well as far as like what heroes they actually brought. Did they do well with those heroes? I don't know. It's mixed format, right? So you could have again 3-0'd at 0-4, and your hero is still there. So I just don't know, right? But we saw similar. I think the biggest thing that I was not shocked, but I was curious is the ultim conversion rate was real high. I think it was like only 2 old hymns didn't make day two. Maybe 1 or 2. One of those 2. Yeah. It's like a 90-something% conversion rate.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if old hymn did well or the players just did well in draft, right? Like that's kind of like one of the issues. I know they were very good. Like Michael Hamilton was there. There were very good oldhim players that were there. I just don't know, what that means. But I think that the conversion rates kind of made sense.
I can definitely say as an oldhim player that means that all oldhim players are very, very highly skilled.
Yeah.
And very handsome and intelligent.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to be. Play like so many 50-minute games in a row. Like how are you gonna like retain all of that? Throughout the days.
I mean, I will say that playing Oldhim does require a little more skill from my own personal experience, just based on the flexibility of your hero power and the cards you have. I don't know. I still can't wrap my head around fully how to play Oldhim, so I realize that people who play him are probably a little better on the skill
next level.
Yeah.
So just based on the top 8 here, so we had the second event in a row where we had 50% Briar in top 8, right? Other than this is Singapore. Clearly, there's a thing.
It's a pattern
Briar,
now.
right?
Yeah, it's a pattern.
A little bit, yeah.
It's a stat now, right?
They also had it so that they were staggered, right? It was 1 Briar per quarterfinal match, or I guess semifinal.
It just happened to be that. Yeah, each quarter final match, and each semifinal and the finals, right? So we had 4 Briars, we had 2 Prisms, which surprised me a little bit. I was expecting 1 Prism. 2 was a little bit more than I was expecting, because given the amount of Briars that were there, I find that that's a very hard matchup for Prism. I don't know if Oliver disagrees with me, but I feel like Briar is one of the hardest matchups.
I think it is.
Yeah.
One of the Prisms we do know, which is Ian Zhang, he is pretty practiced into Briar, so he's been winning those Briar matchups. I think he won one in Swiss, so he has like a sideboard and a plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Vizrai too,
definitely
I guess, is a little bit of a difficult matchup.
It's like just the rune plays in general, right? Because they're very aggressive. They can pop off a lot of damage. They have access to extra poppers with like runic reclamation. They have they can run CNCs and stuff. Like they have a lot of poppers.
I think especially Pablo's list, he ran a lot of the lead the charge. I think he had like blues and yellow lead the charges, so they were stacking pretty heavily into Prism too.
Yep. And we definitely saw those in some of the stream games from day 2. Like we saw lead the charge be really, really good into like arc-like turns, right? And that was the way they were able to get around that.
Yep.
And then we saw the one dash bringing an eighth seed, the German national champion,
Christian Hauck.
Dash.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Mr. Pintor going for a second PT title, another Runeblade. And he was the one Viscera, and I think that kind of confirms on what my thoughts were on Viscera is that I don't know what it is about Viscera. Nobody seems to be top 8ing very easily with Viscera. Like there's always like the one top 8 Viscera, but it's always like some godsend when they manage to make it through the gauntlet. In this particular case, it's no different. Like we needed the PT #1 champ to bring him in. Like it had to be like one of the best, if not the best player for Flesh and Blood in the world at the moment. Have to bring in this hero and brute force him into top 8 here. Whereas Briar, you're just seeing half the meta pretty much every single time in top 8. And then I don't think anything else kind of surprised me. They're like no Guardians.
Yeah.
I don't know if that really surprises me. No like super spicy random like
spicy
Lexi
list that just hates on everything in the meta. Nothing like that.
Any thoughts about the top 8 breakdown?
I feel like the Guardians were doing well until the very last round. I think people told me like the top tables were 3 Prism versus Old Hymns and like a Briar mirror.
If you look at the top 20, you'll notice that 9th through 12th are 4 Prisms, and 13th through 16th are 4 Old Hymns. At 10 wins. Yeah. So it's pretty unfortunate that like all the Old Hymns that were at 10 wins ended up losing. I think if one of them won and was paired against a Briar, we would definitely see at least one Old Hymn in the top 8. But that's just how pairings work out, right? You can't win them all. I don't want to say disappointment. I'll say it was a disappointment that the standings worked out so that there was Briar versus someone else in every matchup. When Briar won all 4 of those matches, we just got 4 Briars in top 4, and everybody just like.
I wonder who wins.
Like we don't want to be here and watch. Yeah, you know what hero's gonna win way beforehand, and it's not really fun to watch mirrors, right?
Yeah. I will say that the Briar lists that they had, some of them were pretty spicy. I haven't been keeping up with Briar lists, but I feel like Earththor Surge is a very big breakout card from this event, and it's something that I didn't see Briars utilizing too much before, but now I see it being used in pretty much every one of the top winning decks.
Yeah, shifting to more of an Earth package. Maybe you're adding more Earth to be able to keep Channel Mount available longer, is my guess. It's also a great card with Bramble Spark, I think. They synergize very well together, so...
Yeah, I know, what's his name? Matt Folks was able to keep a Channel Mount Heroic, or would have been able to keep a Channel Mount Heroic available for 3 turns.
Which is very unlikely.
Yeah. But just the fact that it's possible when in a previous Briar deck, it was completely unheard of. That tells me that the Briar meta, quote unquote, is shifting more towards Earth.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. I mean, I saw a couple of the games. Once I got the semis, I have to admit, I kind of glossed over a little bit with the Briar Veers.
I had to skip a bit.
I was just curious to see like whether one of these 4 players, non-Briar players, like how big of a dent they could put into one of the Briar decks, right? So I think Ian came super close because setting up a double Arclight, he was incredibly close. It was a very, very tight matchup. Matt Folks was down to a whole lot of nothing in his deck at that given point. A lot of blues to pitch for like channel, a lot of Earth cards. Again, he played extremely well. Both players played extremely well in that matchup to like kind of figure out what their outs were. But I think when Matt like pulled off the creepers and Ian just stonewalled it to like get rid of the creepers turn 1, when that deck was essentially built off creepers spam. Like it was one of the only decks that had relied on creepers like that. Ian was able to like cut that real early. Again, taking a bit of a life hit, which did obviously hurt him later in the game. He wasn't able to preserve as much. A couple extra points that he might have been able to do it. But I think the first one, the Dash Briar, I think it was just Briar just fatiguing that. Like it was just a very clear, just block, like hit him with a 0 for 4, get your embodiment, block him out.
People realize that it's not as hard as people expected to fatigue the dash. Minus the turns where you set up with your not high octane, your maximum velocities, but beyond that, you can pretty much tank up, and it's not like that hard of a matchup.
I think Christian did end up boosting 2 max velocities in that game also.
Okay, so that's your out. If you boost them out, it's over.
Yeah, Briar was able to put up a very good counterattack that game. I feel like Christian didn't have enough opportunities to set up his maximum velocities or big turns. I feel like by turn 4 or 5, when Briar still had all her armor and it was like 28 life versus 29 life, I was like, this game's probably over. This in favor of the Briar.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then Pablo's game, very, very close. It was really like a tempo. Like it's
Runeblade versus.
So it's Runeblade. So it was very tempo oriented, but like Pablo did quite a good job. He had quite a few bricks too, I think, when I was looking at like some of Pablo's turn. Like it was a little unfortunate on the Viscera side, but if you're playing like a Runeblade deck like that, you will have off turns. Like it is going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just the way you navigate around those, and I thought it did. Like it was down to the wire, right? Like you really just got him. You're kind of just got him off the fact that Pablo has no like they're not running Arcane Barrier, right? Because it's just there's no point.
It's a race.
So it is a pure race. And then watched a bit of Fado Black's game, also a very, very good Prism player. He was keeping up at the beginning. He was able to like stymie the Briar player fair amount. I think it just kind of got out of hand. Like there were some turns where he just wasn't able to like put an aura down and keep it up, or he wasn't able to like you really need to have like those turns that Ian had where he was just able to like on and off turn pitch a yellow and then 1 for 7 or something like that, and just like really regain a lot more tempo. And I don't think Fano was able to like chain enough of those together, put enough of a dent, where I feel like that matchup you like have to, like that is like one of your only win cons is to actually put some of those reasonable on hits and reasonable like damage outputs. I don't know if there's much to say about semis or finals, to be honest. It was there were Briar mirrors. Briar won. Matt Folks did win. Congratulations, Matt Folks. He did bring out the belittle package, right? Yep. His deck is definitely different. Double yellow tome of Findel, the triple tome of the Arknight, the yellow belittles, the yellow snatches, the Promise of Plenty, which I played with yesterday. Definitely one of those cards you didn't see in any of the decks. A lot of spicy looking cards, and obviously it worked out for him. I think he was able to, in some of the games, I did see him use creepers like up to like 2 or 3 turns, where it was like that's how he was supposed to use it, like that's how it was intended. It's very good because your creepers, he always creepers in channel mount, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're able to creepers in channel mount, and you get the you get the quicken after, and you can push it on the snapper or snaps or whatever. It's sorry, not snatch, not snaps.
Right.
It's real good. So I do definitely see merit in that deck. It is a bit of an odd deck to pilot. I did try a little bit myself, but I think people will definitely gravitate towards more of a belittle package, which is very odd to say.
Yeah, credit where credit's due, because even though it was like 4 Briars, I feel like all the Briars were on 2 different archetypes. So you look at it that way, there was some amount of diversity, even though it's still 4 Briars. So at the very least, there was a bit of innovation in the Briar package when it came to that sort of.
Yeah, I mean, once you start looking at all these like Briar meta kind of events, you're gonna have to start thinking about how you face the mirror, and a lot of these innovations probably come from knowing you're gonna face other Briars to get to the top. So, it's pretty cool to see.
I totally agree. Moving on to the calling here. So, calling was just CC, and the breakdown was pretty much the same as far as the heroes that were brought to the calling, as far as like a ton of Rune Blades, ton of Briar, ton of Viscera. I imagine this is because like a lot of those players were Tour, like they dropped, either didn't make day 2 or they dropped. They might have got unlucky, or they just maybe not as practiced on the deck, but there were a lot of Rune Blades, a lot of Prisms, and just kind of a grab bag of everything else. And it was a little bit interesting. Does anyone have any thoughts about the calling?
I will say that there were some slight differences in the mid-tier amounts of heroes. One of which is that there's a lot more Dromai and a lot more Lexis and Dories than there were in the Pro Tour. So I think overall the metagame for the calling was a little bit more balanced, which I think is understandable when you think that the calling is more about bringing the hero that you like the most, whereas people who are qualified for the Pro Tour are more interested in the metagame type of thing. So for example, we'll mention this later, but Yuki brought Viserai to the Pro Tour, but ended up playing Prism, a hero that she was more comfortable with at the calling, and then ended up doing very well.
Yes, that's true. And looking at the calling, we didn't really get that much. We didn't get any coverage on Swiss. It kind of like went in on like one of the quarters games. And I believe the first seed was a Dorinthia. Yes. 12-1 Dorinthia, if I recall correctly. How much does that surprise you, everybody? 12-1 Dorinthia. Does this work?
Very, very surprising.
Dorinthia has a really good matchup into Briar, and since people are adopting like a no block playstyle, then they don't really know how to. They probably haven't blocked Dorinthia that often, so they don't know what to block or how to block. So I think Dorinthia can really go through all the Rune Blades really easily if the other players think.
For a lot of players who are starting out around now and around when Briar is popular, they likely didn't see many Dories in their road to nationals, and their nationals, into their even maybe armories, right? So I think that having that inexperience in the calling might be very surprising, especially for a hero that requires so much knowledge on how to block, like you mentioned, Oliver. So I believe it now that we talk about it, but I was still shocked to see it. Just kind of in hindsight, I was like, whoa, a Dory, what the heck?
Yeah, I think there were 2 Dories in day 2. Only one of them, obviously the first seed was one of them. We have a relatively famous now local Dory player, Shin Inoue, who has been doing a lot of innovation. So at least for us, seeing Dory perform so well is not a surprise. Mostly because Dory being really, really good at surprising people. Even if you know how to play against Dory, if you change up 1 or 2 things in Dory's list and run a couple of off-meta cards, suddenly you have to think about a lot more other things, and now you start panicking, and then you start making mistakes.
Yeah.
So she has a bit of a Kano effect, where the less prevalent she is in the meta, the more likely she is to be a rogue deck that ends up spiking the tournament because I'm preparing for her.
Yep. I totally agree. Like they're like, and she did get some power. Like Listening Steelblade is a hell of a card.
That's true.
Like there are some cards that really do break it out. Like you get to really come in with extra counters and really be able to stack them properly. And there's chances you will double hit, like you will hit twice, right? And so really be able to like go off on your weapon here. The other heroes in the top 8, there was one dash. Of course, dash. Gotta sneak a dash in. Gotta sneak a Viserai in. Gotta sneak that Viserai, sneak that dash. Again, we're getting real similar to the PT top 8, which is actually kind of ironic here. So we got 4 Briars. Where have I heard this before? And 2 Prisms.
Third time in a row. Oh, it's only 2 Briars.
Yep.
2 Briars?
We had 2 Briars, 3 Prisms. Let me pull up the
Dory, Viserai, and maybe you're looking at the Pro Tour one.
No, they switched it around. Okay, I think the first picture they had was just wrong. Yeah, so it's 2 Briars, three Prisms, then the Viserai and the Dory.
I'm trying to find it
And
myself.
so that was the basic call. Really unfortunate for that the Dory to hit Prism round 1. A real difficult matchup for Dory. However, because there are 3 Prisms in top 8, it's kind of highly unlikely he's just going to dodge Prism entirely. But hitting it in top 8 was a little more unfortunate.
Yeah.
But we did end up with the semis, with a mirror match in semis. We had Prism Briar versus Prism Briar, right? So there were 2 Prism Briar matches. One with the top seed at 12-1. So there were 2 12-1s, I believe. So the top seed was, or maybe 3 12-1s, I think. So the top seed at 12-1 was also a Prism player. Really nice guy. I think I played him at PT, the first PT from Spain, Sergio. And he was playing against 1 Briar, and then there was another match. And then it ended up being unlike the PT, we ended up actually seeing one of those Briars get knocked down a peg, right?
Yep.
So, yes, it was, I think, Joris? I want to say Joris. Maybe it's Joris, I apologize. I'm just going to assume it's silent, but maybe. So I think he made the finals along with the Polish Briar player, right? Mm-hmm. And I think those matchups were a little bit interesting because it was down to the wire, the finals there. I think he was able to win on one life, right? It was a hell of a game. Very, very similar. I think the two strategies, some Prisms just want to like slam down auras, but then if they're running things like lead the charge, gets real hazy. I don't know if that Briar list had lead the charges. Like I kind of actually forgot at this point, but it's getting mixed up between that and PT, right? But at that point, you can just also slam down a more aggro approach with like Phantasmaclasm, Fractal Replication, things like that. Red War Tunes, real good aggressive cards, right? And those are like the two strategies available to you. But Joris was able to bring it down, officially making Prism living legends. How do we feel about
what a hero.
The call-in results here? The hero that we all deserved and
honestly,
all rated.
I think this is a good thing. I'm going to be that guy and say I'm happy to see Prism go. As a non-Prism player, okay, I'm happy she's gone.
Yep. I'm okay with her gone because honestly, the meta needs changing and people need to stop complaining about her.
And she was a gatekeeper, right? Yeah, exactly. And also she gatekeeps a lot of the Guardians and some other heroes as well. So I think that giving them some breathing room.
Dory.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Icelander as well. Like she just can't play against Prism, so.
Dromai.
Yeah.
Dromai too. Yeah, give these other heroes a chance for the spotlight, you know? Because Prism, like, it was just too much of a gatekeeping scenario. And it was about time. She was sitting at 2 points left for quite a while, I think. There were quite a few events that she just dodged. We were expecting her to dodge this one as well. And then we were expecting her to see her in the Nationals, but now we're not going to see her anymore. So that gives
it was real close. Prism was on 1 health. That was real close to Prism being alive for another kind of season here. But any comments on the calling?
I do want to shout out to Yuki. She went back to Prism after deliberating weeks and weeks over playing Viserai in Prism.
It is accurate. Weeks and weeks is accurate.
Yeah, she did really well in Prism, and I'm happy that she got top 8 at calling.
Yeah, everybody's got top 8.
Yeah. Also, I forgot to shout out to Ian John.
Ian as well. getting top 8. Yeah, hell of a hell of a game too. He didn't have any reps into the belittle Briar. Like that was the first time he's seen that kind of list, and he still managed to. Honestly, he was so close to just winning that game. I was very impressed watching that game.
Yeah, and of course, if he were a little better in the early game, I think he might have closed it out.
I think if he had a little bit more of a health buffer, but I think Matt's turns were pretty explosive early, and in typical Yuki fashion, waiting till the absolute last moment to lock in a hero. I love it, and so that was kind of calling. So I want to talk a little bit about the expected kind of the B&R Nats meta prediction as far as
what does this all mean for the upcoming Nationals, right? Yeah.
I want to start with, are there any cards you guys think that are going to show up in the B&R? Obviously, Prism will be living legend, but is there anything you guys saw from the weekend? Oh, and Battle Hardened was a draft. There was some weird things happening. We're not really going to cover the draft Battle Hardened.
Right.
Not a ton to talk about, but like as far as the B&R, is there anything you guys think that maybe is going to be addressed? Maybe not addressed? I don't know.
Okay. I got a conspiracy theory that they have to have a room play on top all the time. So
it is James White's favorite class. Oh,
they're gonna unban Skeleton?
I'm just kidding, but if they unban Skeleton, I will not be surprised.
That's
but they really. They're not gonna do that. I think so.
I want to say no changes, just because I feel like people expect the Prism ban to be enough of a shakeup that they're willing to let things settle before throwing down the ban hammer.
Yeah.
If something was banned, I would say maybe like 30% chance it's Belittle, 30% chance it's Channel Out Heroic, and like 40% chance it's some other Briar card that doesn't really matter.
But like has like a side effect that has like a really third party kind of effect that everyone's like, oh yeah, I kind of
the Autumn's Touch thing that happened with Starvo, right? Something similar to that, where it's like now you get a bit less defense, but it didn't matter that much to the hero, right? It affected Ultim more than it did Starvo, actually. But something similar, I think. I'm looking at the Living Legends points now, and Briar is currently sitting at 642. With the
they haven't put in
the this would be a PT, so that's 200 points.
She'd be at 842.
Yeah, every Nationals is US Nationals is 80, and the rest are I think 40.
You guys are special.
Yeah, US gets more points. So high chance she LLs out by Nationals season. So I think with that small of a timeline, like of a lifespan, I think they probably won't touch her that much, in my opinion. I think Channel Mount is a bit too big of a change to ban. It is the one card that the deck relies on. It is the only deck that uses it, which would be a pretty good ban, to be honest. But it's kind of like the whole point of the deck. So I don't know. If they remove it, no one's playing Briar anymore. You kill the hero at that point. Yeah.
I think
Sorry, go ahead. I kind of echo the no changes. I think they'll make the changes after Nats for Worlds meta, because James White loves a nice fresh Worlds meta like 3 weeks before the event. Everything's gonna be okay, and then like 3 weeks before he's just gonna like throw in that oregano, throw in that like
the oregano.
I'm not very good with spices. Basil? He's gonna throw in something.
It's a herb, but yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna say herbs and spices. I'm like KFC. I'm getting a little bit hungry here. So he's gonna throw that into the pot, mix it up, and then see what pops out. Right? See if Pablo can take down another one. It's going to be more like reasonable for Worlds compared to Nats is literally around the corner. It's like the next couple weeks. I think the first one's like next week or something like that. It is September 5th to the 20 something for most of them. So it's like right here. I'd be very surprised if he made any changes. I think Skelda unban would be absolutely nuts. I cannot. I would be.
There's no chance they're going to do it. I just thought it'd be funny.
It would be hilarious.
I want to say like 10% chance they ban Sonata too.
Oh my god, yeah.
Sonata
wasn't even used in the Viserai decks. I was looking at Pablo's list. There was no Sonata in there.
Like, why would you add in more variation like that? It's a matter of like they banned one or the other so they can't work together, right? That was the idea. And Sonata was more prevalent in Blitz, and the Skelda was more prevalent in CC, so that's kind of the way they took it. But I think it would be interesting because then you just you kind of stamp out Oldhim, which like if they're afraid of Oldhim just coming up and like eating everybody, and they bring back Skelda, there's your counter to Oldhim, right? And so if they're like stupendously worried about top 8 Oldhim, which I would be worried about too watching that, but yeah, I can see a realm somewhere at the Aether, but I definitely think Belittle is like the target if there is a target. I think Matt Folks just like brought it back into the limelight. People were already thinking of it beforehand. Like Hayden Dale put it in Viserai and ended up winning like an RTN or something like that. And there are other decks that can use it. It's just a very, very good card. It was a massive thing into like Chain and stuff like that. It was a very popular card in these decks. So I wouldn't be super surprised to see the Belittle gone. But I feel like with Prism gone, you're already going to see the rise of more like variation shift, especially like Guardians and such like that. They can probably have a much better like show into Briar, especially, but even Viserai to some extent. So I think they won't touch anything.
Yeah, I want to say though, I don't expect any bans after national season either, unless there is a very, very clear dominant hero. Just because for a lot of these nationals events, players will only play essentially one event with that metagame, so it might still be fresh in a lot of people's minds, especially since even though you get results from across the world, right? Every country has their own localized meta, so that doesn't tell you too much in terms of actionable data. Where unless it's completely dominant, some heroes completely dominant.
Yeah, that's fair.
There might be some things here and there that might help out some of the underdog heroes. Heroes that are kind of on the cusp of being. I guess Oldhim was an example of a hero that's like on the cusp of being really good, but with the Prism ban, now he's like available to flourish or able to flourish. Maybe some spice there. I'm expecting something spicy, but I don't know what yet. But nothing that touches Briar, I think. I think Briar's okay. She'll LL soon. It's just like something on the bottom that's going to bring someone up, I think. If anything.
I do have to mention, like, Oldhim was doing really well in Pro Tour, even with Prism around. Since Prism is going to be LLing out, I feel like Fatigue Oldhim specifically might actually be a big factor in the meta. So do you think they would ban a card that would knock that down a peg? Because a lot of people don't like playing against Fatigue, and it plays against the clock all the time.
Yeah, that's the issue.
It might not be fun to play against. So do you think
you know what you do?
That's a good point.
You reban Autumn's Touch. Right? No, hear me out. Think about it, right? Oldhim is very obvious, but it hurts Briar too. like those blue 3 blocks are still blue or 3 blocks.
Yeah.
Autumn's Touch is. I even saw red. Like you could like the red and yellow is a similar effect that for Evergreen. They were in the deck.
Yeah.
So like you could double stack to be able to get channel mount for more turns, right? That's the idea, right?
Okay.
If it's blue, it's hard to get multiple Earth cards in there to keep channel around. So it's not a massive change. However, it does hit multiple like top tier heroes, right? And so I'm honestly like, LSS. I don't
make it harder to block CNCs, those erase faces maybe in Briar. I guess I can kind of see it.
Yeah, if Briar doesn't hit, she has a lot of 2 blocks. You know what I mean? So I think it's a reasonable like I don't.
But it's
think
like,
it'll happen.
would they ban the same
Though.
card again? I don't know.
Yeah, look, they did it the first time. We could do it again.
I know it'd be kind of a meme at that point to reban it.
We'll ban Autumn's Touch again. Never mind, guys.
yeah, exactly. We made a mistake by unbanning it.
Any predictions for like Nats overall? Just like as an overall kind of feel, or are there any kind of is Briar just gonna reign supreme? Everyone just looks at these PT and calling like Briar is like half pretty much of most representations, or is it gonna be like a lot more just varied?
So my prediction is you probably will see a lot of Briar because she's very easy to pick up. But I think you will see a lot more old hymns coming out the woodwork, and in turn that will bring a lot more Icelanders because Icelander's pretty decent into Guardian.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see a lot more of those characters.
So my predictions, I'll give you 4 predictions. 1, Belittle Briar
I'll write them
becomes
down.
standard.
Sorry,
because
Belittle Briar, sorry?
Belittle Briar becomes standard because they no longer have to prepare for Prism, and 2, the increased amount of ice heroes means that Belittle will be stunks basically. People will pick up Belittle because it's an anti ice card. Second prediction, we'll see a lot more Icelanders in top 8, but we won't see them translate more into the metagame share. I feel like Icelander is still very difficult to play and very difficult to pilot. And even though she does well against both Oldhim and Runeblades theoretically, I feel like in practice, the amount of skill you need to be on par with Runeblade and Oldhim aggression or gameplay, you need to be a lot more skilled on the Icelander side. Third prediction, Rhinar will be the dark horse 3-4.
I was going to bring that up. Rhinar into Oldhim is really nice.
Rhinar into Oldhim is really nice. Rhinar into Icelander is really nice. And if Ice Heroes become the decks to beat, and the Runeblades get slower because they're trying to tech towards anti-ice, I feel like Rhinar has a good chance. I don't think he'll be very popular still, but I think that he will show up in a lot more top 8s. He'll be like the Dory, essentially.
The Dory, yeah.
Last prediction. Nationals, I want to say, will be 30% Runeblade, 40% Ice, and 30% other decks.
40% Ice.
So the Oldhim and the Lexi, I guess, is part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. 40% Ice and Guardian. So I'll include Bravo.
Include Bravo in there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more reasonable. I think.
Are popular enough, and people will feel more comfortable bringing Lexi and Icelander to these events.
Bravo's a good point. I think he has a bit more of an edge now than he did before. We're seeing Eric's seeing a lot of chatter in the international Discord for people talking about Bravo. Oh, you mentioned it to me earlier.
I'm okay. I'll go into my predictions now that Rob is put it out there.
Yeah, go for it.
I think I agree with the Runeblade. I think 30% is pretty reasonable. I was just gonna say a third. So I'll just shift 30% sounds good. Let's just say 30%.
Yeah.
I think people will bring a lot more pet decks. I think they're going to be less concerned compared to last national season, obviously, where Briar was, like Lightning Briar was the thing, right? That was the meta. They're going to bring a lot more pet decks this time around because it's been very clear that you can run dash and win a calling, that kind of thing, right? So it's a thing. I don't think the meta is choking any particular hero difficult. And now the Prism is gone, just a lot of those heroes pop up. I think Guardian stonks go up a lot, but not 40%. Like, obviously, I think the issue with Guardian is the same. The Guardian playstyle is not very attractive for a lot of people. I think a lot of people try Guardian and they're turned off real quick. Your matches are long. Your matches take a lot of thought. The mirror is hell. If you haven't played it a bunch, you're just going to lose. And it's very hard to tech into a whole bunch of decks. I think it's very consistent, very standard, and people might not like that. So I think the meta share will go up for Bravo and Oldhim, but I don't think it's going to come anywhere close to what people think, unless everyone just disregards the fact that most Oldhim games are real long, and Bravo games could also just be very long. Also, that's kind of like, I think aggro will still be about a solid third at least. The meadows might be a little bit long, a little bit higher.
The Rune Blades aren't changing their playstyle. They're going to stick to aggro. Fi is still going to be a thing. I don't think that's going anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. I know we had a couple like extra topics here for that Yichin wanted to discuss. I think we'll just like turn it over to him.
Yeah, I guess I want to mention a couple of cool things during the Pro Tour. One of which was the cosplay contest. I know there was some chatter early on about I think Mansant was the one who was complaining that he can't compete in the Pro Tour and also be in the cosplay contest at the same time. So what they ended up doing was that they put the calling and the Pro Tour on lunch break while they had the cosplay contest, and then everybody went over to the cosplay contest, did their thing, and then went back to the next round. So I thought that was pretty cool for them.
Did you say? Sorry, did you say lunch break? Sorry, I haven't heard these words.
Yeah, it was like your sprint or something. They apparently took like 30 minutes off for the cosplay contest.
30 minutes?
Yeah,
I'm at the wrong. I went to the wrong PT. I should have got friends. 30 minutes. Wow, could have used that. Okay.
Yeah. It's nice they were able to accommodate.
Cool. Mm-hmm.
It was very nice.
The other thing I want to mention was Pleasant Kenobi. They put him in the booth for one of the rounds, and I don't know how familiar you guys are with Dota, but I think relatively early on in Dota's lifespan, they were trying to do some commentary that was more appealing to people who are newer to the game, since the game's so complicated. And what they did was that they had casters specifically for a new player's perspective and asking a bunch of questions, basic questions about like, what does this hero do? What's the team's overall goal? What's happening here? So him asking those questions, I think, was a really good really good thing to watch for newer players, where the other commentator was explaining how what Oldham's abilities was, what he was doing, what his cards did, and like how he was trying to how those work together. I'd like to see that in the future for commentary, where we have a couple rounds, especially early on, or maybe even later in the event, where you just have the commentators shift over to a new player perspective gear, and they can just explain stuff that's happening.
It's more inquisitive. It's more like, oh, can you explain how this works, rather than just kind of glancing it over or glossing it over, and going into like more of the strategy behind it, right? I appreciated it. I saw that commentary. I thought it was pretty good. It was new, like it was different from my opinion. And as someone who knows a fair amount about the game, it wasn't as like important to me to see that. But I can see it from a new player point of view, that if you're just joining into this new world and you're looking at the top level event in the world currently, it makes sense to attract more people. I think the game needs to grow, and people need to see that side of the game as well.
Yeah, I think viewership is like very, very important for the competitive scene. The more people that get more involved, you get a thriving casual and competitive scene, and that really helps the game grow. I thought overall the casting was quite good. I thought it was the tournament center, I believe, did a really, really good job in the overall quality. I like the new dice that they brought up, just like random thing, like the little pitch dice and the damage and
those dice.
And the go again and the dominate. Like when I was at New Jersey, I didn't get anything when I was on stream. I got like we just like used the regular thing, and it was a little bit more awkward. But here it looked like pretty clean. It looked like everything was kind of spaced pretty well. It was very attentive. So I thought the quality is quite good. Definitely different. They did bring in different people to cast. Like they didn't just kind of stick with the same, I guess, household names in casting, so to speak. They had I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Yeah, right. Yeah, they had him.
French
in there.
guy, right?
Yes, the French guy. Yes, and they had like a different kind of Craig Campbell's too, who hasn't really done too many of the Fab events. I know he's like probably like Magic the Gathering kind of like this. Yeah,
he's
how it is.
He's been into Fab for a good year now. And I believe it was a last-minute addition because Brian Gottlieb, one of the usual casters.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Ended up not being able to travel because he got COVID.
Okay, yeah, I thought I saw Golly. I thought I saw him on the list here, but I didn't see him casting, so I thought it was a little odd. But then they had, the like Flake and the
Tannin
guys
Grace,
Tannin Grace, yeah. So I thought it was a nice mix of like a little bit more diversity, and they ended up like pairing the casters so to be able to develop synergy. I thought that was really, because I know in Jersey they just like flipped around and they kind of put people in random
whoever was available.
places.
Come on up and cast this game. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was fine, but I like this one a bit better. Is like let them develop. They probably have no synergy to begin with.
I mean, synergy is important when you're casting, right? It helps fill in those gaps where there's not much going on, and you have some discussion going on between the casters, some flavor text, some colorful commentary a little bit. So I appreciate when that develops. It's a lot more pleasurable to watch at that point.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Any other comments about like the event as it is?
I did like how they had stats for the people for when we went through the top 8 of Pro Tour. We saw like their Swiss breakdown, their win losses, their drafting, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really like that.
Yeah, they had a little bit more info on the players too, like in the top 8, like their like how they qualified, like XP.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
What they've done.
So that was you had to fill out a sheet, right? When you got top 8?
Nope.
You didn't?
No.
Nope.
They just
must
knew.
be new. Oh, it's all over.
I know all the PT competitors do have to fill out something when they enter PT. Like they fill out a little bit form.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like how they call
Orlando. So for the calling Orlando, what ended up happening was, this was I think one of the first ones that Michael Hamilton won. Where for the calling Orlando specifically, they gave out sheets where players could like fill in their bio and just like, why are you here today? What's your goal? Why do you like your hero? So on and so forth. And then the commentators use that. So actually, it's pretty surprising to hear that you didn't get one. And
I think it might have been because I was holding up the line and I was late. Maybe they forgot to do it.
I didn't get one either, though. I played the calling as well, and they didn't ask me. I didn't go far. Well, I made day 2, but I didn't go that far. I didn't make top 8 or anything, so maybe that's why.
Yeah.
Well,
one other thing sorry, go ahead.
No, I had nothing.
One other thing I want to mention about the dice specifically is I know James White was on camera briefly and mentioned that they might include the dice in the next content creator kits. So
that's awesome.
You guys might get some. We will.
Give you that attitude. No way. You'll get some dice. I can't wait to just like throw them at people at like Worlds, be like, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
You're gonna die.
I mean, it'd be great to have them for our nationals, because I don't even think we have those kind of dice for our Canadian nationals coming up. It'd be great because we finally got a casting team ready for that. Yeah. Initially, there wasn't going to be anything.
We'll be lucky to have like a working stream. I'm not gonna hold my breath for any dice and stuff like that. So.
No, but it'd be nice if we can get something similar to help cast to see what's going on. It's a lot better with the dice.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's fair. Definitely excited for Dynasty. I think August 30th is when they said the new... 2
days from now. We'll get some info.
Oh, it's 2 days. Oh, shit.
Yeah, it is 2 days.
So soon.
You slept through everything, Oliver. Dynasty's already fugue.
You slept through a Dynasty.
A fugue state, like it's national season. Okay.
Yeah.
I actually haven't played TTS in like weeks. And I only just play like once a week for Armory.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to bring up is I think maybe mad props are due to Pablo just for making it back to top 8 after winning.
He's a beast.
He's really good. So good. Like it wasn't just a fluke that he won the first one. He made it back to top 8 on Viserai, the only Viserai to get there. So I mean, this guy is probably really, really good.
Credit to Matt Folks for winning, but I think Pablo's still the best player in the world. Like I don't think it'd be super hard to say he's not at this point. He just he was able to essentially his original hero is LL too. So like Chain's LL. Like he didn't just bring the same hero. He had to put Viserai and Chain are not that similar. Like their strategies are completely different. And I think it takes a lot to actually go through that crush draft, crush CC, go into top. Like he didn't sneak in at 8th. Like he was in top 8. He wasn't like bubbling at 8th. He had a good record. So props to him for definitely taking that down.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's also something to note. In his interview before his match, he did say if Prism wasn't around, he would be playing Bravo. So
that's cool.
He would be playing a different.
Well, we'll hold him to that now. Now that she's LL'd.
Yeah.
I also want to credit. I also want to credit Michael Hamilton for being one of the best players as well.
Mm-hmm.
He did fairly decently at the Pro Tour, and he also won the Battle Hardened.
Right.
So
Right.
definitely one of the better players.
Was he the U.S. national champ? No, that was Tarek, right?
That was
Michael
Tarek.
won a calling, I think, in Las Vegas.
I think he won 2.
He
No,
won
he
two.
won 2.
He won
call-ins.
2
Yeah,
call-ins.
Indianapolis. Was it
And
Indy
Orlando.
and Orlando?
Orlando,
Indy
sorry, Orlando. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
On,
we see his name pop up multiple times now, so he's obviously
Yeah.
very good as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw him end the day with X3. I think he was he was 10-4. So I think he was just like on that cusp losing to a Prism, one of the Oldhams that lost to one of the Prisms.
Yeah.
So like that is the life you bring with Oldham in that manner, right? So I think with that, appreciate, if you like this kind of content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Both channels. OK&Y has some interesting content. If you're not sure if you have a fake card, there's really only one channel that I can think of that has like a very nice image and quality control kind of video that you really got to check out for that kind of thing.
And we'll include, of course, a link to their channel as well in the description of this video.
See their logo right in the right in the bottom, right over there. So you see the logo down there. So go check that out. And with that, thanks for joining us, Oliver and Yi-Chin, and one day maybe Kevin, who's floating head on the in the back there.
Yeah,
and with that, one day. And with that, appreciate everyone for watching from wherever you're watching in the world. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having us.